I'm David Groninger, and today is Friday, January 8th, 2016. Well, this is the first page of one of my favorite pieces. It energizes me. It's by Rachmaninoff, written over 100 years ago. I play this piece every day because it inspires me to feel inspired. When I feel inspired, I tend to meet other people who are inspired by life, and I tend to find experiences, more and more experiences that inspire me. Well, every day I ask myself this question: what can I say in 5 or 10 minutes that might help 5 or 10 million people? I write it down and then I give a talk. And the talk today is simply this: strangers, the people we don't know in this world. Are we to consider them friends? Are they friends or foe? That is, are they people that we're going to like, or people that we should be suspicious of or consider an enemy? So, people in the world that we don't know, are they friends or are they foes? I once saw this book that had a bunch of stories about people over the past, several hundred years who made booby traps around their property, so that if somebody would come on their property, they would get hurt or injured. Like fall into a pit that had bamboo spikes or something, or trip over a rope and have a bow and arrow released and get shot with an arrow or something like this. These were traps, booby traps, and they were designed so that to originally to protect the person in the home or on the property, so that if somebody came onto the property, maybe to do some harm to the person or to break into their house or to steal something or whatever, and if they got caught in this booby trap, then they would get injured or killed. So the idea was for protection. But this particular book was about all the people who had set up booby traps, and then later they forgot. They forgot that they set up these booby traps, and they themselves were killed by these booby traps, by the same traps they set up in order to defend themselves against strangers that they considered might be bad people. They forgot about the traps, they fell into the traps and were killed. These were stories of people that happened to. And these were not just modern times, and it happens even in the modern day. These are the past several hundred years. So this has kind of been an interesting behavior pattern where people don't trust other people. They set up some type of a trap that will hopefully, with the intention of doing good for themselves, to defend themselves against something bad coming from people they don't know. But then they forget that they set this thing up, and then they get caught in it and get injured. And as soon as I saw this, it made me think of a whole other idea, and that is the way we set up booby traps in our mind to protect ourselves from other people. How many people are suspicious of strangers, or who maybe set up some idea in their mind that they're going to make some judgment against somebody, to maybe not to damage their reputation, but just to maybe think about them as a wrongdoer so they can feel better about it. In other words, they're setting up it's like little traps. So the people, either they know or don't know, can somehow fall into these traps, and they can maybe get injured, of course, the way we see them. And there are other kinds of traps where people can become prepared to say something rude to somebody as soon as something happens to them. I know people in their automobiles who have things like baseball bats or tire irons, or even a gun or a knife or something, and these are weapons they have intentionally, even at where they can easily get to them in their car, almost hoping that somebody will cross their path so they can use this weapon to defend themselves against the other person. And I kind of wonder, when people are setting up these defenses against strangers, how many times it backfires. For example, I read statistics on people who have guns at home, and the intention is, of course, to protect themselves against an intruder. And that, of course, makes sense. However, statistically, something like only a few percent of guns that are used at home, or that people have at home, are ever used against an intruder. The majority of the guns at home, when they are used wrongfully or mistakenly, are used by some family member against another family member. That's the vast majority of deaths, of accidental deaths by guns, or maybe even intentional deaths that were caused by some emotional rage or something. So here's this idea, well, we want to defend ourselves, so we'll have a gun at home, but it actually increases the risk of being injured or killed by having the gun. Just like these booby traps that people had around their house, for those who fell into them, it increased their risk of being harmed just by having the booby trap. So here's kind of a different way of thinking about things. You know, when there's 7 billion people in the world, and however many people we know, even if we knew 1 million people, if we have 1 million friends, you take 1 million in relation to 7 billion people, the vast majority of people that are on this planet are strangers to us. So here's my idea. Why not embrace an attitude towards strangers that strangers are mainly good people, that they have some constructive value, that there's something you can learn from them. There's a mutual benefit in you meeting a stranger, a benefit that they might know some things that can help you. They might know people who can be a benefit to you. You might know people or have knowledge, ideas, skills that could be benefit to them. So the idea is this: do not set mental booby traps to entrap other people so that others might get emotionally hurt or hurt by your own comments or something like this. And do not consider strangers as somebody that you should be suspicious of and even prepared to defend yourself against. Well, it's been about 6 or 7 minutes. This is my alarm clock. It's to teach me to be succinct in the way that I speak. So the message has been this: strangers, are they friends or foe? That is, are they friends or enemies? I say, look at the 7 billion strangers on this planet. Look at them as your friends. Be more welcoming to strangers. Don't set up booby traps either in your mind, the way you think about people, or even a physical booby trap. Because the chances are, if you're thinking ill of other people, if you're thinking negative about other people, well, you're a people, and isn't it possible that in the same way that you're thinking maybe a denigrating or maybe kind of a belittling or critical kind of a thought or way of looking at other people, couldn't that same belittling happen to you? In other words, what if you yourself are now belittling yourself? What if you yourself are protecting yourself from your abilities or skills? In other words, you think about a country like China, who back in the ancient times built the Great Wall of China. They built this wall to keep out negative influences, but it actually worked against them, because for centuries it kept China living in the Dark Ages, living in primitive times where they could not learn about all the advancements in all around the world. So here's my idea for you. Treat strangers, the 7 billion strangers on this planet, as potential friends, not as potential enemies. Strangers are your friends. You know, other statistics having to do with not only keeping guns in the home, well, that you know, people lock their doors because, oh, somebody might come in and hurt them or kill them, and yet the majority of, you know, people being hurt or killed, it's all done by people that they know. It's only the minority that is done by people that they do not know. So the idea is this: develop your people skills. Learn more about yourself. Learn more about people in general so you can read and understand people better. Don't be suspicious of people of the world in general, because if so, it's like building a wall, by building a barrier that separates you from others, but it separates you from opportunity, from learning, from wisdom, from growth, from the teamwork and cooperation of other people. So this talk is called Strangers, Friend or Foe. Make strangers your friend before you even meet them. Consider the 7 billion people on this planet are already your friends, and whenever you see one, it's like you're becoming reunited. Be more open for strangers to come into your life and for you to approach strangers. And when you have people skills, or as you develop your people skills more, you'll be able to read people to the point where you can adjudicate if somebody is not quite a safe person that you want to, build a friendship with. But when you just blanket put the wall up and say no strangers, well, that kind of limits a whole bunch of things, not just a little bit of potential harm coming into your life. It also blocks the way toward a whole lifetime of opportunity. Well, that's my talk today. The strangers of the world, make them your friends. This is David Groninger in Seattle, Washington, saying thank you.